Manchester City 0, Tottenham Hotspur 4. Yes, you heard that correctly. Arguably one of the most shocking results in Premier League history. Man City, there was talks of 5 in a row in the summer, and now they are on the wrong end of a 5 in a row. Jamie, let's kickstart with you. You're at the game. Have you recovered one from the misery that was that defeat? And talk us through what went wrong.
Getting over it, I don't know. I feel a bit numb with that after that game, to be honest. What went wrong? I don't know what went right. Actually, no, what went right was the first 9 minutes. We looked quite good. We looked in control. Spurs had one attack, which should have been dealt with by Guardiola. Crossing, fantastic ball in, fantastic finish by Maddison. We're 1-0 down, and then it all went to shit. There's no other way of saying it. That's what it was. The problem I think we had was we weren't very good in defence, we weren't very good in attack, and we weren't very good in midfield. So to be honest, I don't know where to sort of narrow down what went so badly. But the problem I had with it was, look, when we lost to Spurs in the Cup, wasn't too fussed. One, it was the Carabao Cup, and we put in an okay performance considering the team we put out. When we played Bournemouth, Bournemouth were the better team. And that one, it's sort of like, you know what, Bournemouth were brilliant that day. You can you go, that happens. You lose some of these away games. Brighton, well, the Sporting game, that was like a mad 5 minutes. And then we were 3-1 down. It was just bizarre how that happened, and we fell apart in the second half. The Brighton one, you're 1-0 up. You've got about 10 minutes to go. You can see 2 quick goals. That's poor. From a team that's trying to win the title, that's poor. But this game against Spurs was the worst one of the lot, because I couldn't give you a good performance. The best performance was actually probably De Bruyne, and he came on for 15 minutes at the end, and we were already 3-0 down at that point. So when it was just that bad. I actually got so frustrated in that game, I left before the 4th goal. It was in the 90, I think it was the 91st minute I left. And as I got down to just outside the ground, I think one of you two messaged going, "Oh wow, it's 4-0." So I'd actually missed that goal. So it was just, I don't understand what we were doing. That's the biggest problem with it. I was so infuriated throughout the whole game. The ref didn't help. He was nowhere near the reason why we lost. But if that was a non-contact sport that day, he did a great job. But football isn't. But ignore that for the result and City's performance, because we deserved to lose because we were bad. But it's difficult to narrow down exactly what's gone wrong, because I don't think anything was right. So If you go with 11 out of 11 were wrong.
Yeah. I think it's hard to even comprehend this result, and that's why I said at the start of the pod that for me, this is honestly one of the most surprising results in my eyes in Premier League history. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic, but even despite the fact you lost 4 in a row, like, big teams do not lose 4-0 at home ever. Like, it just doesn't happen. I'm trying to think back and probably should have done some more stats, but like Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, like not City, like you just don't lose 4-0 at home. It never happens. You've seen a few 3-0s and that over the years occasionally, but this result is so hard to comprehend. And on the flip side, you've got a Spurs team who, you know, there's a bit of a narrative around them not being able to win these games. So it just is so hard to comprehend. And I think as well, tactically, now we said in the podcast last week, tactically, Spurs are just obviously a bit of a bogey team for you clearly at this point anyway. But that aside, I think the issue is basically the counterattacks. We said it was an issue last week. It fits Spurs' style very well. And the stats kind of back up that is the problem with City at the minute, the counterattacks. Because just a couple of stats. So in terms of City, so it's the most shots they've faced on the counter in the entirety of Pep's reign by quite a distance. So you're facing 1.2 shots per game on the counter. And before these numbers are like 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. So you're like 3x in the amount of shots you're facing on the counter for a starting point. And then Spurs also, for those who like stats, it was the highest fast breaks per game Spurs had in that game. So without getting too technical and analytical, I think the problem with City is quite obvious. You're too bad at getting done on the counter. Reece, what do you think of that? What did you make of the game? Do you agree with that? Or do you think there was another reason for this big loss?
Yeah, I think that is the big factor of it, this counter-attacking style. I mean, it was just every chance they got went into the back of the net. I mean, at the start of the season, Jamie, you were dreaming of 5 in a row, but I didn't think it was going to be 5 defeats in a row, let's be honest. What was one of the dangerous things as well is you've been conceding goals. Like, you've not really been keeping clean sheets. I think, how many have you got in the league this season? Is it 2?
Two. Chelsea at the start of the season, and then against Southampton.
Exactly. So you look at that, right? That's poor for a team that's supposed to be the champions. That's poor. And it did trickle on from last season a bit as well. And even when your defense is fully fit, you're still conceding goals. Eventually, that does catch up with you. And it looks like it's catching up with you now. Because these goals, although well taken, were very, very poor from a City perspective. To be conceding on the counter-attack, is sort of basic 101 in football of what to stop. And all 4 of them went in the back of the net, unfortunately for you.
Well, just to add on to that, sort of obviously main people will talk about is Rodri missing to stop that counter-attack. And if you look into that midfield, Kovacic would have played there as well. He was injured. So we played Rico Lewis in that sort of position. And kind of in that position. And I said to you two before the game, I'm worried Lewis is going to play CDM, especially when the team came out, because he's not physical enough. On the ball, he is a very good player. He technically on the ball can, he'll make them passes. He'll bring the play forward. But when you want the defensive side of it, he's too fragile for it. And he'll put himself about for his size, but that's for his size. And not everyone's at the same size. Some players are bigger and they will bully him. And that's a part of the problem, I think, is Rodri. But you have to face teams without Rodri. It's sort of we shouldn't have counted on Rodri playing 65 games this season in favour of us winning most of our games. You can't count on that, and there doesn't seem to be a plan B without him.
And it's not just that though. That's the thing. You can't use the Rodri excuse all the time because City do have quality. And if we include the game when he did go off injured against Arsenal, they didn't lose in 5 league games. Do you know what I mean? I think they drew with Arsenal, drew with Newcastle, beat Fulham, beat Wolves, beat Southampton. So, yes, they're games they probably should be getting results in, but it doesn't imply so much of a weakness. But I suppose it does show the weakness in these types of games.
I think maybe teams have just figured it out now. Pep's always been one that's, he started football so dominant and tactically he's been excellent. But I do think now people are finding maybe those 5 games you could argue, there was a bit of a feeling out process from other managers. Maybe not everyone looked into it tactically, but maybe managers have just figured him out now, or at least figured out what City look like without Rodri. And it is that counter-attack.
Well, I think you also have to look at the attack, to be perfectly honest. Because actually, if you go for the Spurs game, I think Spurs had something like 2.7 XG. We had 2.3. So it wasn't a 4-0 battering per sort of chances created. The sort of attacking problem for us is if you look at our XG for this season, Haaland is top, obviously, with something like an XG of 12. Our second most XG for a player is Bernardo Silva with 1.8. That is an incredible gap. I know, you feed Haaland enough, he will score you enough goals to win the Golden Boot. But you still need players chipping in. So if you look at one of our best season with the Centurions, we had 4 players score over 15 goals, I think it was. Or it was nearly 4 players around that. It shouldn't just come from one player, because even at that time we had Aguero and Aguero could put up stats almost sort of as good as Haaland. You need the players. So Foden needs to sort of step up. His goals have dried up this season. De Bruyne has been out. Foden's been out a bit as well, so it's not a blame on him. Savio hasn't scored a single goal for us yet. He's looked very good, but the main thing is putting the ball in the back of the net. Doku, he has scored, but he can be hit and miss. So that's, I think, is a massive problem. We're lacking goal scorers. And this is why when we played that Tottenham game in the Cup, I was like, when we didn't have Haaland on the pitch, and I think Foden went off as a sub, and I went, there's not a single player on this pitch who scores goals. And that's a massive problem. And I think that comes down to Alvarez being sold in the summer with no plan of replacing him. Now, we got a good fee for Alvarez, but the team suffers without him. And I think the plan was to keep Alvarez, but then he wanted to go and we got a decent price for him. So when you don't plan for that, that's when you get punished. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment. We're getting punished at both ends because Haaland can't score 60 odd goals. He shouldn't have to. Like, if he's doing that, that's absolutely incredible, but he shouldn't have to. Other players need to chip in. And that, I think, is a massive problem for us as well. It's not just the defensive side. We're not taking enough of our chances, and it can't just always fall to Haaland, because what if he has a bad day? Then we don't score.
He's having bad days at the minute. That's the problem. Conveniently aligned with me putting him in my FPL team.
Can you take him out, please, George? Take him out.
I might have to. I think as well, just on Haaland, you can see a bit of a lack. I know it sounds ridiculous based on these numbers, but even that early chance comes to mind where he got the ball on the right side of the box. He just took an awful touch, trying to cut inside. I'm like, 9 times out of 10, Haaland, one touch in front, bang, that goes in the back of the net. And maybe you can argue some of the losses, a bit of the narrative around City is impacting the strikers as well. You do see that a lot in teams. Let's talk about the age of the squad, because that is, particularly after this defeat, is kind of a bit more of a spotlight on the squad. Jamie, you've obviously been critical of the likes of Walker, where you can kind of see that, you can almost see the drop-off happening in front of your eyes. In terms of the average age of the squads, just compared to the game, City at 26 years, Spurs were at 23.5. So in football terms, that's quite a big gap. And I know that's just a one-off, but you look at some of the other teams, bit more potential, bit upcoming. Do you see that as an issue? And do you think that's the reason maybe we're seeing a bit of a drop-off?
Yes and no. Because one, you've got to remember, this team has won a lot of trophies. So it doesn't, like, the fact that they're now getting older is always going to happen. And they've won enough trophies to justify it. But if you looked at Real Madrid when they won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, they had Casemiro, Modric, Kroos all in there. They were all over 30s. You can still win things with an older squad. It does come down a bit to tactics on that. But, like you mentioned there, Walker, that 4th goal, I like, when it was Traore for Wolves, Traore is an absolute athlete. He could be, if he trained just for the 100-meter sprint, he'd be in that final. He's that sort of, that much of a pace sort of beast. Werner is quick, but Walker let him do that, it looked like. And it was sort of like Walker slowed and gone, I'll catch you. And then Werner went, well, you're not. Bye-bye, goal, 4th gun. I know the 4th didn't matter. It just added to the scoreline, but it's things like that are going wrong. And I do think that matters a bit, though, in the midfield with Gundogan and Kovacic when they were there. They don't have the pace to turn around and get back. And that's a bit of a problem. So, yes, it's a yes and no answer. You can still win things with an aging squad, but it's sort of, people are sort of saying like, oh, we need a massive rebuild because they're so old. No, that's not the case. It's, to be honest, if we had like it's if we have Rodri back, if De Bruyne has been fit for most of the season, I don't think we'd be in this situation. And that's 2 players back in our squad. So I don't think it's as big of a crisis of the age as what people are now going to make out because we've lost 5 in a row. But it's sort of, maybe we do need another player sort of January coming up to sign someone who is a bit younger. We can't sign a 30-year-old. That'd be stupid, I think. We did sign Gundogan in the summer, but that was, on a free, meant to be coming back, as a bit of a legend, hasn't worked out as well. So that's a bit of the problems there. But yeah, it's yes and no. I know it's sitting on the fence, but I think it's justified.
And look, we have got to give Spurs a bit of credit. I know we spoke mostly about City. Like, it's hard, again, probably for Spurs fans as well. It's hard to even comprehend losing to Ipswich at home and then beating City for it. It just doesn't make any sense. But I guess that's kind of symptomatic of the Ange style of football. Doesn't, almost tactically inept is probably really, really harsh. But Spurs are just a weird side to predict at the minute. I think Maddison, obviously, standout performance. Again, I mean, they were solid all round. Reece, did anyone stand out for you on the Spurs side? Because I think we have got to touch on Spurs very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, yes, City were poor, but Spurs played brilliantly. They took advantage and scored 4 beautiful goals, Ben Davis, particularly, makeshift defence there, makeshift centre-back pairing. He stepped up and delivered well. And let's make this clear as well. Spurs have injury problems as well. So whenever they go on about, makeshift and putting teams together, teams tend to turn up. He was brilliant, Ben Davis. He led by example, really had assurance of what is often a very shaky back line. So he deserves credit. Maddison, again, outstanding. Kulusevski, to me, since, possibly and just put him in some sort of a different role, he's flourished and he's getting better and better every week. And it's good to see that we're finally seeing the player that we know he's capable of being. It's been outstanding from the whole team. But yeah, I'd say Davis, Maddison, and Kulusevski in particular for me. I do want to draw on that point. You said, yeah, you don't know what you're going to get with Spurs. But I think this is the frustrating thing with them at the moment is if you look at, they lost to Ipswich last game just before the international break. They were on top against Brighton and threw it away. Or you could argue the Palace game away where they lost. But if we look at the Brighton game and the game against Ipswich, they're games they should have gone on to win. So they should be 3 points better off, than where they are now, really. And that's the frustrating thing. It's all good beating City, but the 2 games where they could have got more points, they didn't. And that's what's frustrating with them. But nevertheless, we can't knock what was a fantastic performance from a lot of players there.
Yeah, I think their fans will take a 4-0 win over City, to be honest, because that is genuinely a result you'll probably still be talking about in 5-10 years, for them at least, anyway. Let's move on to the title race now, because this is the inevitable question that will get asked. And look, we touched on it last week, right? We said things could get very ugly very quickly for Man City if they were to lose to Spurs. And not only did they lose, but to lose in such a ridiculous fashion. We got to turn our attention to Sunday, because the last game that Man City will need and want right now is Liverpool away. Liverpool 8 points clear at the top of the table, form of their lives, not really put a foot wrong in any competition. So I guess the question is City still in the title race? And if City lose to Liverpool, which based on form, you'd be, probably putting a bit of money on that, is the title race done already?
No. I think even if City are to lose against Liverpool, I still don't think it's over, because it's Man City. They still turn it on when it matters, don't they? I think Liverpool will have to rely on being this consistent throughout the whole season to have a chance of winning it, whereas City can switch. Just flick a switch in December, January, and they go on to win it. No, it's definitely not over. I mean, look, I think we could argue that Liverpool were pushed to the limit at the weekend by Southampton. Southampton gifted them goals. And that was just crazy, because they should have, they would see that game as a missed opportunity. City are more than capable of coming back. Don't worry about Arsenal; they're not in it. So, it'll be tough, but you also would be shocked if City turn up in this game on Sunday. This is a real test for Liverpool to show really what are they capable of.
11 points though, like I think the thing will be, we know it's City, we know what they can do, etc., etc. But we are witnessing something that's unprecedented here. This isn't normal City, right? This is unprecedented, as I said. Pep's never lost 5 games in a row in his career. City, as I said, big teams do not get beat 4-0 at home. Their best player, Ballon d'Or winner, is out for the season, and they've not got a backup striker, albeit they've got Haaland.
No,
So the landscape has changed.
I mean, the last time City were off it in a way like this, Liverpool did go on to storm the league, didn't they? But it's not the be-all and end-all, is it? Because they'll still have to go to the Etihad, which could be pivotal. That's not till February, but that's a tough run of fixtures. They've still got Everton away as well in a couple of weeks, Newcastle away, all coming up in their next sort of 3 games. So it's a real test for Liverpool in those 3 games, show what they're made of. An 11-point gap, City overcome an 8-point gap against Arsenal. Let's not forget. Yes, Arsenal handed it to them on a plate, but they still had to go and win their games. So that's all City will focus on, just winning their games. They can't control what Liverpool do.
I think they're also positive, like you said, Reece, sort of 8 points on Arsenal before. We've actually done the exact same 8-point gap as we are now to Liverpool. In 2020-21 season, Liverpool were on 31 points, Man City were on 23 points, and we were sitting about 8th in the table, and we won the league. Now, that did take a stupid amount of games to win in a row, but we have shown we can do that. So I wouldn't say it's over, no. However, you're looking towards Sunday for the Premier League. I'm looking towards the Feyenoord game. We need to win. We need to win a game. We need to not lose. Maybe even a draw, just to not lose 6 in a row. Now, Feyenoord, I'm glad we've got that game in the midweek. Not because I didn't want our players to be sat on that 4-0 defeat for the whole week, because that would be horrendous, them worrying about going to Anfield. Once again, a team we don't do very well against away from home. So it's not the best. It's definitely not the best fixture to have. It is the worst fixture to have. But in terms of the actual title race, City are now 3rd favourites. I've seen on the bookies. Liverpool favourites, Arsenal 2nd favourites. We're 3rd favourites. I don't know why that is when we're above Arsenal still, unless it's just because we're playing Liverpool next. But if the title race is over, it's over for everyone because we're ahead of everyone still, apart from Liverpool. That's where you've got to look at it.
I was going to say, we're talking about the title race, but maybe we should just entertain. We should play devil's advocate and entertain the possibility of where you could end up at the end of this game week.
Well, because you've got,
I know, but Man City in 5th is ridiculous. So suddenly we could be looking at a title race versus being in 5th place.
Yeah, but you're talking about us in an absolute crisis, by the way, and we're 2nd in the league. When Chelsea were in crisis, they finished 12th. United are in crisis and they're 12th now. Arsenal in crisis, they finished 8th twice in a row. Liverpool have had things like this. I think people need to take it in a bit of context. Yes, performance is not good enough. That's what I'm more worried about, the performance levels. We're still 2nd in the league. That's the funny thing about this. And that's where I think it's slightly blown out of proportion. If Liverpool go and win the title, they deserve to win the title. If Arsenal go and win the title, they deserve to win the title. And if City go and win the title, whoever wins the title deserves to win it. City have got no God-given right to be at the top. If we fall off, we fall off. You got to remember, we've just won 4 of them in a row. We can't be that greedy. I'm sorry. Like some of these fans, like obviously you get the trolls on internet going Pep out, things, blah blah blah, crap like that. But even if we don't win anything this season, it's not the end of the world. We've seen our team, like people who are my age and older, have seen our team be relegated at Ipswich. By the way, it was away to Ipswich and we got relegated there. Take it in perspective, like we can not win a league title for once, and it's not an all blown out disaster. The club's not going, like we might even get relegated anyway, just through to the 115 charges. Then we'll be in League Two. At least Pep signed his contract, so we've got him for another few years to get us up a few of the leagues. I think it's slightly blown out of proportion. The title race is still on because we're early enough. But if it is 11 points and you're into the end of February, it's probably over because Liverpool will be in good enough form to do it and they can cross the line. So there's still time for it to not be over, but City just need to get their performances better and win against Feyenoord on Tuesday. is my goal. Let's forget about Sunday at the moment.
Yeah, fair. And look, you're more than capable of winning that game as well. So, if you go do that, go to Anfield, win, suddenly you're back in the title race, the rut's over, and suddenly the whole narrative is probably just completely on its head anyway, as we see.
Absolutely. The narrative will be City are title favourites, Liverpool are going to drop off. That's how quickly it could change. If we win, even if we lose on Tuesday and we beat Liverpool on Sunday, not saying it's going to happen, but if that scenario came up, the sort of narrative would be completely changed and City would be favourites again.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, I guess we kind of briefly touched on it, but to round things off, Pep obviously doing the classic, announcing the contract extension for 1 year before this defeat. Do we think that changes anything? Do we think this form changes anything? And why is he doing this kind of 1 year extension versus the previous one?
Two, George.
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
I thought it was a 1 year. That makes more sense.
It was rumoured to be 1 year, but sort of we were discussing it when I was going with my dad, my brother, and friends who go to Manchester for the game. We were talking about it, and we were like, if he signs a 1 year contract, he gets all the questions asked again and again to him next year. So he's probably gone, I can't deal with this crap. Do 2 years. And if he wants to end his contract, he'll go to, Khaldoon, Sheikh Mansour and just go, look, I'm done. Like, you don't have to pay me, don't have to pay me out my contract, all this sort of stuff. It'll be, I'm done. It's just, I think it's a good way of stopping questions next season because he's probably bored of it because it's the same boring questions. Are you going to sign a contract like every other week? And it's like, he's like, he probably wants to talk about football, not his contract situation. So 2 years, I think it's fine. It was quite weird that he's done it after the 4 in a row defeats. I'm happy with that because that gave us all a lift during international break. We couldn't lose on that weekend, and we got that news. It was all good news. And then we played Spurs, and then it all went to pot. But yeah, I think it's still okay. Like, I'm definitely not going to be asking for Pep to leave. He can sign a 5-year contract now.
Yeah. Jamie's right. It's an assurance thing from Pep, isn't it? Yes, you time it so you can give the club a boost. It's an assurance thing. He knows he's got work to do. He knows that if he was to leave now, the squad is probably, it's going to be a big pickup job for somebody. He gives that assurance and he gives that stability that they need. He could probably walk out at any time. It doesn't matter. But yeah, for him, it just gives Man City that assurance as well. If they're looking to bring someone in after him, bring that other person in, train them up, get them to learn the game, etc. Blah blah blah. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. Perfectly logical. Even though nothing will happen with these 115 charges, they've got that assurance with him, so it's all okay.
Yeah, I think deep down he probably wants to end, knowing how his ego works. And a lot of these managers, he'll probably want to end on a high. He won't want to leave with City question marks over City. He'll want to leave winning the league and sort of retire on top, if you like. So I think that probably is why. But that is all we have time for. City fans in particular, let us know your thoughts. Do you agree with Jamie? If you don't win a trophy, does it matter that much? Have you just got to put things into perspective? Or do you want Pep out already? Let us know below. But as always, like, comment and subscribe. You know the drill.